God says this directly to you in this moment, and as these words reach you, heaven leans closer, the air around you thickens with divine electricity, and something inside your chest knows immediately that this is not a normal moment, not a regular message, not an accidental encounter, because God says, listen carefully, don't skip, 3 minutes left in this divine window. 3 minutes before something shifts around your spirit in a way you have been waiting for without even knowing it. Heaven is speaking your name right now, clearly, loudly, repeatedly, as if every angel assigned to you suddenly turned their face toward your timeline and said, this is the moment, this is the second, this is the breath where everything begins to move. God says you are safe, you are covered, nothing will go wrong with you, because what is opening for you now is not danger, not fear, not tragedy, but divine timing, breakthrough energy, and spiritual rearrangement that has been building beneath the surface for months, maybe years, and now the pressure you have felt is breaking open into a miracle you can finally receive. God says your miracle is here, not tomorrow, not someday, not eventually, here, right now, hovering over your life like a glowing seal waiting to land, waiting to attach itself to your destiny, waiting to shift what has been stuck, waiting to lift what has been heavy, waiting to breathe life into what felt lifeless. God says heaven is calling your name because the old cycle is ending, the old weight is dissolving, the old confusion is losing its grip, and the old battles are collapsing under the weight of divine intervention. God says the angels have already moved, instantly, faster than thought, faster than sound, faster than fear, because heaven does not delay when your name is spoken. The moment heaven whispered your name, an entire chain of spiritual movements erupted like lightning, angels stepping toward you, timelines opening, paths clearing, barriers cracking, blessings unlocking. God says don't skip because your spirit feels this already, that trembling, that pressure, that ache inside your chest that you couldn't explain. It wasn't anxiety, it was the weight of a coming breakthrough pressing against the walls of your life, preparing to burst open. God says listen carefully, because the next breath you take carries permission to rise, permission to heal, permission to release, permission to walk forward without the chains that have quietly held you. You didn't even realize how much you were carrying, but heaven did, and heaven has been working to lift it long before you asked, long before you prayed for strength, long before you whispered for help in the middle of the night. God says this spiritual urgency is not danger, it's alignment. It's the sound of heaven rearranging everything around you, stretching time, shifting people, closing old doors that hurt you, and opening new ones that bless you. God says these 3 minutes symbolize a divine countdown, not to fear but to freedom, not to loss but to restoration, not to tragedy but to transformation. Heaven is saying your name because you are stepping into a moment where burdens lift off your shoulders like smoke dissolving into light. God says old cycles are breaking right now, the cycle of doubt, the cycle of delay, the cycle of emotional heaviness, the cycle of spiritual exhaustion. They are breaking because heaven has decided that you have carried enough, fought enough, cried enough, survived enough, and now it is time to receive. God says you will not lose anything meant for your destiny, not one blessing will slip away, not one opportunity will be stolen, not one breakthrough will bypass you. Heaven is holding your path steady, guarding your steps, surrounding you with protection so thick that even what was meant to discourage you will now be used to strengthen you. God says clarity is coming, not slow, not subtle, not confusing, but sharp, sudden, bright like a sunrise exploding across a dark horizon. You will suddenly understand why things fell apart, why certain people left, why certain delays happened, why certain roads felt blocked. God says the confusion is ending and the clarity is beginning because heaven is aligning your vision with your destiny. God says you have walked through shadows, but you are not a child of shadows, you are a child of light, and now light is overtaking everything that tried to bury your spirit. God says healing is coming, not only to your mind but to your heart, your energy, your hope, your confidence, your inner world. Healing is moving like soft water through every place you've been hurting, every place you've been quiet, every place you felt unseen. God says the heaviness that followed you is losing its authority, because heaven has placed a divine shield around you that nothing can break, nothing can pierce, nothing can overpower. God says don't skip because the divine shield around you is strengthening with every second you listen, not because of these words, but because heaven responds to your openness, because your spirit is finally ready to receive, because your heart has reached the moment where it is no longer resisting what God has been trying to give you. God says heaven is moving everything for you, moving obstacles out of the way, moving people into alignment, moving blessings toward you, moving burdens off of you. God says what felt delayed was never denied, it was preserved, protected, stored for a moment like this. Heaven says your miracle is already released, not pending, not processing, not waiting for approval. Released. Sent. Activated. It is coming toward you like a wave of light that nothing can interfere with. God says you are stepping into divine timing, and when divine timing opens, nothing can shut it. No circumstance, no person, no mistake, no fear, no past. God says the timing is perfect now because you are ready now, because your heart has grown, your strength has matured, your spirit has been stretched. God says what used to break you will no longer break you, what used to drain you will no longer drain you, what used to confuse you will no longer confuse you. You are stepping into a spiritually upgraded version of yourself, and heaven is guiding every step. God says listen carefully, a destiny shift is happening right now. Not symbolic. Not metaphorical. Real. Tangible. Energetic. Heaven is redirecting your path toward what was meant for you all along. God says you are safe, nothing will go wrong with you, because heaven has already calculated your path, measured your obstacles, assigned your angels, and secured your blessing. God says every burden you have been carrying is loosening, falling away, dissolving, because heaven refuses to let you move into the next chapter weighed down by what was never meant to stay. God says this breakthrough is emotional and spiritual at the same time. The pressure you felt was not punishment, it was preparation. The heaviness you carried was not failure, it was transformation. The tension inside you was not fear, it was the final moment before breakthrough hits. God says breakthrough is not coming, it is happening, right now, in real time, in this moment as you breathe. God says heaven has stepped closer to you, wrapped around you, filled the atmosphere around your life with light, with direction, with protection, with reassurance. God says don't skip because this is your alignment moment, the moment where heaven pulls you back into your purpose, pulls you away from what drains you, pulls you toward what lifts you. God says blessings are arriving immediately, not slowly, not little by little, but suddenly, like a spiritual surge. God says the divine shield surrounding you is impenetrable. You may not feel it physically, but your spirit feels safer right now than it has in a long time. God says restoration is beginning, restoring your peace, restoring your confidence, restoring your energy, restoring your belief in yourself, restoring your trust in your future. God says the old story is ending, the new one is beginning, and heaven has turned the page for you. God says what you lost emotionally, spiritually, mentally, or even materially is not gone. It is being restored in a new form, in a better form, in a higher form. God says nothing is wasted, nothing is forgotten, nothing is ignored, everything is being woven into your breakthrough. God says these 3 minutes are divine urgency, urgency not because something is wrong but because something is ready. Heaven says your spirit is ready, your path is ready, your blessing is ready, your breakthrough is ready, and now the divine sequence begins. God says breathe, receive, trust, because heaven is holding you, guiding you, lifting you, protecting you. God says your name is echoing in heaven right now, echoing in rooms of miracles, echoing in chambers of breakthrough, echoing in pathways of destiny. God says listen carefully, this is your moment, your shift, your signal, your release, your miracle, and heaven will not let you miss it. God says listen carefully because as these words continue flowing into your spirit, heaven is still speaking your name, louder than before, clearer than before, stronger than before, and every time your name echoes in the higher realms, something in your life shifts, something in your future moves, something heavy inside you loosens, something divine begins aligning, because God says this is not entertainment, this is not coincidence, this is not random timing, this is a spiritual appointment. And heaven has pulled you into it because the moment you tried to scroll, something inside you stopped you, something said, don't skip, something whispered that these words are carrying weight, carrying light, carrying movement, carrying breakthrough energy, and God says that was your spirit recognizing what your mind cannot yet understand, because heaven is rearranging things right now in ways you cannot see but can feel, that tightness in your chest, that sudden awareness, that feeling that something is shifting around you, yes, that is heaven touching your timeline in real time, that is the divine hand adjusting your path, that is angels moving instantly on your behalf, because God says the moment you stayed, the moment you didn't scroll, the moment you kept listening, heaven activated a sequence around your destiny that had been waiting for your yes, waiting for your openness, waiting for your heart to be ready, and now the readiness has arrived. God says don't skip, don't move, don't lose focus, because every second you stay, your mind receives clarity, your heart receives healing, your spirit receives strength, and the confusion that has been fighting you begins to collapse under divine truth. God says you are safe, completely safe, more protected than you have ever been, because heaven has placed a divine shield around you so powerful that even the storms that were forming against you are dissolving before they reach you. God says nothing will go wrong with you, not in this moment, not in this week, not in the next season, because heaven has sealed your path with favor, covered your steps with light, and surrounded your future with angels who are standing guard over every detail of your life. God says your miracle is here, breathing near you, rising inside your atmosphere like a golden storm of blessings forming around your name. God says breakthrough is not coming slowly, it is breaking open suddenly, dramatically, loudly, the way the first crack of dawn breaks through darkness without asking permission. God says old cycles are breaking even as you listen, cycles of heaviness, cycles of silent suffering, cycles of emotional exhaustion, cycles of confusion, cycles of spiritual stagnation. Heaven says the cycle ends now because you have stepped into a moment that carries more spiritual energy than the last 6 months of your life combined. God says don't skip because this flow is calibrating your spirit to receive what you once thought was impossible. God says the delay you faced was not rejection, it was divine protection, because what you thought you lost was actually being preserved for a moment where you would be able to receive it without losing yourself again. God says listen carefully because heaven is whispering secrets into your spirit right now, secrets of direction, secrets of healing, secrets of clarity, secrets of inner strength, secrets of destiny, and these whispers are rewriting the way your heart understands your future. God says you are stepping into divine timing, and when divine timing opens, everything accelerates, doors open faster, blessings arrive quicker, clarity becomes sharper, opportunities multiply, energy rises, burdens fall, and suddenly everything that felt distant begins to move toward you like it recognizes you, like it belongs to you, like it was always meant for you. God says you have carried emotional weight that was never yours to carry, and heaven is lifting it right now, gently, completely, lifting it from the deepest parts of you where you learned to hide your hurt. God says healing is pouring into you like warm light, fixing the unspoken aches, soothing the quiet wounds, mending the broken places, restoring the tired parts of your heart. God says the heaviness is leaving you now, slowly at first, then suddenly, then completely, because heaven refuses to let you enter your next chapter with old pain attached to your spirit. God says a destiny shift is happening now, not later, not in theory, but in reality, in this very moment as your heart beats. Heaven is turning your path, aligning your steps, rewriting the angles of your journey, guiding you away from what drains you and toward what strengthens you. God says the people who left your life were removed to make space for people who can actually carry spiritual weight with you, people who align with your growth, people who speak life instead of doubt. God says new connections are coming, new support, new energy, new opportunities, new stability. God says don't skip because these words are tuning your spirit to recognize those blessings when they arrive. God says the spiritual pressure you have been feeling, that intensity, that restlessness, that emotional tightness, it wasn't danger, it was breakthrough, it was spiritual contractions, it was your destiny expanding, it was heaven squeezing out the old energy so the new could enter. God says the pressure is turning into breakthrough, the struggle is turning into strength, the waiting is turning into movement. God says heaven is rearranging everything around you, shifting timelines, redirecting energy, aligning opportunities, clearing obstacles, opening channels, closing harmful paths, renovating your atmosphere. God says angels are standing around you right now. Secrets of direction, secrets of healing, secrets of clarity, secrets of inner strength, secrets of destiny, and these whispers are rewriting the way your heart understands your future. God says you are stepping into divine timing, and when divine timing opens, everything accelerates, doors open faster, blessings arrive quicker, clarity becomes sharper, opportunities multiply, energy rises, burdens fall, and suddenly everything that felt distant begins to move toward you like it recognizes you, like it belongs to you, like it was always meant for you. God says you have carried emotional weight that was never yours to carry, and heaven is lifting it right now, gently, completely, lifting it from the deepest parts of you where you learned to hide your hurt. God says healing is pouring into you like warm light, fixing the unspoken aches, soothing the quiet wounds, mending the broken places, restoring the tired parts of your heart. God says the heaviness is leaving you now, slowly at first, then suddenly, then completely, because heaven refuses to let you enter your next chapter with old pain attached to your spirit. God says a destiny shift is happening now, not later, not in theory, but in reality, in this very moment as your heart beats. Heaven is turning your path, aligning your steps, rewriting the angles of your journey, guiding you away from what drains you and toward what strengthens you. God says the people who left your life were removed to make space for people who can actually carry spiritual weight with you, people who align with your growth, people who speak life instead of doubt. God says new connections are coming, new support, new energy, new opportunities, new stability. God says don't skip because these words are tuning your spirit to recognize those blessings when they arrive. God says the spiritual pressure you have been feeling, that intensity, that restlessness, that emotional tightness, it wasn't danger, it was breakthrough, it was spiritual contractions, it was your destiny expanding, it was heaven squeezing out the old energy so the new could enter. God says the pressure is turning into breakthrough, the struggle is turning into strength, the waiting is turning into movement. God says heaven is rearranging everything around you, shifting timelines, redirecting energy, aligning opportunities, clearing obstacles, opening channels, closing harmful paths, renovating your atmosphere. God says angels are standing around you right now, not symbolically, but actively, present, guarding your heart, guarding your spirit, guarding your direction. God says nothing formed against you will succeed because heaven is already intercepting every negative intention, dissolving every plan that contradicts your destiny, shielding every part of your life that needs protection. God says listen carefully, don't skip, because your name is being spoken in heavenly places, your blessing is being stamped, your miracle is being released, your breakthrough is being secured. God says your spirit is rising, your energy is lifting, your clarity is sharpening, your inner strength is awakening. God says the path ahead is bright, even if you cannot see it yet, the miracle is close, even if you cannot touch it yet, the blessing is yours, even if your hands feel empty right now. God says trust the unfolding, trust the timing, trust the protection, trust the guidance, trust the voice that is speaking to you right now. God says you were never behind, you were being prepared, strengthened, stretched, shaped for something greater than what you asked for. God says your next chapter will make sense of your last chapter, your next door will make sense of the doors that shut, your next blessing will make sense of the battles you survived. God says stay, don't skip, because heaven is not finished speaking yet. Heaven says your name again, and when heaven speaks your name, everything in your life must respond. Heaven says rise, heal, breathe, receive, step forward, trust, open your heart, because what is coming toward you is bigger than what you lost, brighter than what you feared, stronger than what tried to break you. God says your miracle is not waiting for confirmation, it is moving toward you right now, and nothing can stop it. God says you are safe, you are protected, you are covered, you are watched over, you are surrounded by light, and your destiny is secure. God says this moment marks the turning point, the shift, the release, the rise, the renewal, the restoration, and heaven will make sure you do not miss what is meant for you. God says breathe now, because the breakthrough is already here. God says listen carefully because as this divine flow continues to pour into your spirit, heaven is still speaking your name with a force that shakes the unseen realms, and every time your name vibrates through the higher places, something inside your life rearranges itself, aligns itself, opens itself to receive what you were always meant to carry, because God says your life is not standing still, not stuck, not silent anymore. Something is shifting, something is rising, something is awakening inside you, and heaven refuses to let you miss this moment, so don't skip, don't scroll, don't move away even for a second, because God says this moment is sacred, this moment is heavy with meaning, this moment is drenched in breakthrough energy, this moment is carrying the weight of your next season, and heaven has positioned you right here, right now, to receive what your spirit has been quietly yearning for even when your mind didn't have the words for it. God says you are safe, deeply safe, wrapped in a divine shield so strong that even the shadows that once intimidated you now step back, lose their voice, lose their authority, because heaven is surrounding you like a wall of unstoppable light. God says nothing will go wrong with you, not because the path is easy, but because heaven is walking with you, covering you, guiding you, placing angelic guards on every corner of your journey. God says your miracle is not late, it is perfectly timed, perfectly aligned, perfectly positioned to meet you when your heart can hold it without fear, without confusion, without shrinking. God says the weight you've been feeling is not the weight of danger, it is the weight of destiny forming, the weight of breakthrough pressing through old layers of your life, the weight of spiritual transformation pushing out the old so the new can breathe. Heaven says listen carefully, because the angels assigned to you have already moved, instantly, the moment your heart opened, the moment your spirit leaned in, the moment you stayed instead of skipping. God says the pressure you felt was heaven clearing space inside you, making room for peace, making room for strength, making room for clarity, making room for blessings that were always headed your way but needed a spiritually aligned version of you to land safely. God says your name is echoing in the divine chambers, echoing with purpose, echoing with promise, echoing with light, echoing with future, and heaven is amplifying your name because your destiny is being awakened. God says old cycles are breaking, not slowly, not eventually, but right now, in the atmosphere around your life, as if invisible chains are snapping one by one. Cycles of fear, cycles of emotional exhaustion, cycles of doubt, cycles of indecision, cycles of carrying what was never yours to carry. God says these cycles cannot continue into your next chapter because heaven has intervened. God says you are stepping into a new rhythm, a divine rhythm, a rhythm where your spirit moves with peace instead of pressure, with clarity instead of confusion, with courage instead of hesitation. God says listen carefully, because heaven is speaking instructions into your spirit, not instructions of burden but instructions of alignment, guiding your steps in ways you don't fully see but fully feel. God says your heart has been tired, but heaven is pouring strength into you right now, quiet strength, steady strength, strength that doesn't shout but rebuilds you from the inside out. God says healing is flowing into places you forgot needed healing, old wounds, buried memories, silent disappointments, unspoken fears, all of them being washed in divine light as heaven restores you. God says the confusion you carried is dissolving, clarity is sharpening, your inner compass is being recalibrated, your spirit is being tuned to the frequency of destiny. God says don't skip, because every second you stay, heaven aligns something inside you that has been misaligned for years without your awareness. God says you are stepping into a moment where blessings move toward you with intention, where opportunities recognize your name, where peace settles on your shoulders like a warm cloak, where your spirit stands taller than your past. God says the divine timing has opened, and when divine timing opens, everything accelerates, healing accelerates, clarity accelerates, opportunities accelerate, alignment accelerates, progress accelerates. God says the things that once took months will now take moments, the things that once felt impossible will now feel natural, the things that once drained you will now fall off your life effortlessly. Heaven says you are not losing anything, you are gaining clarity, gaining strength, gaining spiritual maturity, gaining resilience, gaining favor. God says the blessing that is coming is not small, it is layered, deep, emotional, transformative, the kind of blessing that heals you while lifting you, the kind of blessing that stabilizes your spirit while opening your future. God says listen carefully because as your name continues echoing in heaven, the divine shield around you thickens, the protection around you strengthens, and every part of your journey is being covered by light. God says there is no fear in your future, only growth, no chaos waiting for you, only alignment, no destruction waiting for you, only renewal. God says your steps are watched, measured, guided, not one step you take is unseen. Heaven is recalibrating the timing of your path, slowing what must slow, accelerating what must accelerate, closing what must close, opening what must open. God says your life is not random, you are being carried by a divine script that heaven has written with intention, and now the next chapter is beginning to turn. God says breathe, don't rush, don't worry, don't fear, because you are held, deeply held, securely held, lovingly held. God says this is your rise, your shift, your activation, your unfolding, and heaven is moving with you. God says nothing is slipping away, everything is coming together, slowly at first, then suddenly, then all at once. God says the breakthrough you've been waiting for is not in the distance, it is beside you, breathing, forming, aligning, opening like a door you didn't know you had the key to. God says your energy is being restored, your hope is being revived, your peace is being renewed. Heaven says stay, don't skip, because the divine flow is still pouring, still lifting, still shaping the path ahead. God says this moment is marking your life in a way you will look back on and say, something changed that day, something broke open, something awakened. God says destiny is not a faraway dream, it is unfolding now, and heaven will not let you miss it. God says rise in your spirit, breathe deeply, trust fully, because your miracle is not only coming, it has already begun. God says listen carefully because this final flow carries the deepest shift, the strongest light, the most powerful spiritual activation that heaven has been preparing for you, and as these words enter your spirit, you can feel something stirring, something rising, something awakening in places inside you that have been silent for too long, because God says heaven is still speaking your name, again and again, with force, with tenderness, with urgency, with love, with divine authority, and every time your name vibrates through the higher realm, the atmosphere around your life rearranges itself completely, shifting the direction of your path, shifting the weight of your heart, shifting the energy of your future.